We talk about the true nature of problems, and that day you're going to go to the lodge, and we're going to do the first breakthrough in front of the room. Okay? Now, I honestly believe, because I've been around and tried to do everything I possibly could, that Mel Wasserman gave me this technology and I've evolved it. But I have never found any technology in all the empowerment technologies I've immersed myself into, like hypnosis and primal therapy and Gestalt and, hypnosis and, rapid eye, everything you can imagine. I've never found a technology that even comes close to the healing power, the ability to reprogram the deepest doubts and fears as the awakening, as the breakthrough in the awakening. So when I get the first person, like I'll say, who wants to volunteer? Some brave soul volunteers for a breakthrough, and actually, it was KC in his awakening. Okay, and you all remember KC who came up and shared. Okay, and within 20-25 minutes, there's not a dry eye in the house. It's so touching, it's so moving, it's so inspiring that everybody's in tears. And everyone in that room, participants and assistants, are crystal clear that that person's life will never be the same. It's that obvious. Now, for KC, it was really interesting because what came up out of his circumstances when he got below the surface was about his feelings about his father and how he had not been the best father to his own kids. I think he abandoned his children. So while he's going through it, everybody in the circle is getting tremendously affected about their whatever they went through with their own father. You know? So then, as we're winding down and he's getting to the good news and he's just blissed out of his mind, somebody says, does anybody realize that it's Father's Day today? Oh. Little divine orchestration there. So then after that, we do soul readings. And you guys have been doing what's called strength showers. In the space of the awakening, you will actually be very surprised at your ability to give, higher self level reading acknowledgments. You'll actually be surprised at your ability to see and to intuit it and to describe each other. Then the next day, we'll do a breakthrough in the morning. Like we get you guys in small groups. We'll do a breakthrough in the morning. We'll do a breakthrough after lunch. Then there's some stuff to just anchor in. Very touched, moved, lifted, inspired. And so then there's a breakthrough on the next day and a breakthrough on the next day. So everybody who wants to has a chance to go through a breakthrough. By the way, when I get done with the first breakthrough in front of the room, like KC, when he's up in front of the room and everybody's cheering, and then he sits down and I let people share a while and I say, who would be interested in a breakthrough? And the whole room, dude, what he did, I want that. So at the end of phase one, I do a ceremony where I let people get in touch with how deeply they desire this level of healing for the entire world, for the whole planet. And it's very moving because everybody is really in tears. Because they've seen every person in the awakening basically have a breakthrough that is that powerful and that healing and that magnificent, it's like that. So now they suddenly are very in touch with how much they would desire this for everybody on the planet. That's the third level of all. Officially, of course, they've snuck in some extras. Then they go back to life and realize that they're not cured. They still have upsets. They still have problems, right? And we used to do the awakening as a week-long thing. And then the culture changed and people started coming in so open and so ready that by the time the end of the week came around, people were absolutely dead to the world. You know what I mean? We had to give them a nap, or there was no point in doing a process. You know what I mean? And it kind of became a crisis, so I had to break it up. And originally we did it like 2 weeks later, and then we found out that anywhere after like a month or 6 weeks after the first phase is actually the best. Because when it's a week long and they've been in heaven for this whole week, when they leave, it's kind of like, well, that was heaven, but this is reality. You know? If they go away and they hit reality and then they come back, the moment they come back into the space that's heavenly, they're like, it was real. And that enters in a much different way than if they hadn't done that. So now they come back. Now the first day of the awakening of phase 1, I have to work my little facilitator buns off and use pretty much all hundreds of conscious techniques in 22 major categories to get them from, what the heck did I sign up for, to blissed out of their mind in one day. Right? But the second phase, to create space, it's like I throw a match into the pool of gasoline and space, right? And very quickly I could just about do anything, like read out of the phone book. John Smith, I see it now. Like you're just in a great space, you know? So it just so happens that in phase 2 is some of the most powerful processes on the planet. Again, the first night is about safety. Then you start the first full day, and there's 2 levels of awe in one day. The first is the parent's essence process. Now, during your breakthrough, your eyes are going to be opened. Your eyes are going to completely be opened as to how much mom and dad actually affected your psychology. I mean, it's an eye-opener. It will blow your mind. Okay? But in phase 2, you're going to go through a process where you're going to find out that whatever you loved and hated about your dad is exactly your money. Whatever you loved and hated about mom is exactly your love life, to the T.
So what you're telling me is that my 19-year-old son won't find anything beautiful in his girlfriend in a few years?
I don't know. It depends on how he feels about his mom.
He's the one that hates me.
Yeah. Great. So then you go through a process where you're going to be mom and dad. You're going to be like your mom as a child. And I'm going to show you how to recreate her. How to stand like her, walk like her, talk like her, speak like her, so you completely recreate her. And this is amazing. You're going to grow up in her life as a child with her parents, her dreams, her traumas, her woundedness. And you're going to find out that you have access to information and you don't know how you know it. It's not uncommon for people to go home after the awakening and say, Mom, were you sexually abused as a young girl? And mom will be like, I never told how could you possibly know that? You know what I'm saying? You're going to absolutely have information and you won't know how you know it. Okay? And you're going to grow up as her, have birth with you, confess a lot of your mistakes as her, right? And at the very end of that process, you're going to do the same thing with dad. At the very end of that process, you're going to get a chance to see what they look like in the spirit realm without their nonsense, without their shortcomings or hang-ups, or what their true, magnificent self looks like. And it's a very moving experience. Now, even though it's about you and your mom or dad, we've had, like for example, we had a connected breath. There was this kid in the connected breath who had does anybody know what a Kundalini experience is?
Yes.
It's when you get hit with so much energy that you're kind of transported to another realm, another domain, right? You're so blissed that you're kind of like in another place. Well, this 9-year-old kid, a 10-year-old kid, the first night during peak experiences, he got hit with a Kundalini experience. So for the next few days, every time he would open his mouth, the whole room would go like, because it was like God was talking to us. You know what I mean? So somebody else is leading connected breath, and I'm upstairs trying to get a nap, and all of a sudden, something wakes me up like a jolt, and I look into space, and I see above the lodge these beings of white light coming into the lodge, and on the bottom I can see some individual bodies, but above that it's just like a river of light. There's so many beings, right? And I'm curious. I'm like, huh, what's this? So I go down to see if anybody else notices. I think Laurel was holding space. Remember I told you how space affects the room? So I whispered in her ear, how's it going? Because she's got her eyes closed. She opens her eyes, and the room, now in connected breath, you know, you're lying down on a sleeping bag, you're just breathing deeply, and very soon, every sound that can be in a room is in the room. Like people are crying, people are angry, people are laughing hysterically. Every sound that human beings is in one room, right? Well, when I whisper in her, I say, "Is everything okay?" She opens her eyes, and literally the noise in the room stops dead. No sound. She looks at me. She goes, "I got to get back." She closes her eyes. The sound goes up again. Right? So when it's over, I'm curious if anybody saw the white light beings. Right? So the first few adults don't just talk about their process. And then the kid, the 10-year-old kid, raises his hand and goes, "Hey, this was the coolest thing. There was these guys made out of white light, and they rocked me, and they sang to me, and then all the other adults who have now been too afraid to say something, me too, I had them in mind." You know, they're all like, you know, bursting at the seams talking about this. And there was one guy in the corner that had his head kind of down, like he'd been through something really powerful. And I said, "Dave, do you want to share?" And slowly he looks up and he says, "They told me to tell you who they are. They are our ancestors, come to let us know that we are the first generation to cross this threshold, and they came to help us." So when you go through the parents' process, you're not just doing it for you or your mother. You are doing it for your mother's mother and her mother and every generation back, and your daughters and their daughters and every generation forward, and your father and his father and all the way back and all the way forward. You talk about a privilege. And I don't have time right now, but I just want to tell you that anything you do directly for your ancestors and descendants can bring you unprecedented blessings, because your ancestors and descendants can do more for you than virtually anybody. Okay. So, parents process in the daytime, take a break, come back in the evening, do connected breath. And again, like I said, it's very simple. You breathe deeply, but people have the most profound experiences. It's unbelievable. That I mean, like when Lori does connected breath, it's going to be phenomenal. It's going to be great. But when you do connected breath at the awakening, it's a whole different ballgame. You'll have kids, teenagers see the millions of people they're going to influence. You have some people go back to when they were 8 or 9. Some people go back to when they were born. Remember every single detail. Ask their mom later and go, "How could you possibly remember that?" We'll have some people go back to the spirit world. Some people see the face of God. You know, I'm saying it's a profound experience. At the very minimum, it'll be an experience of unconditional love. You'll just be bathed in unconditional love. Okay? Okay. So now, that's a level of awe. Now, the next day is called forgiveness process. And it's not an official level of awe, although when I was worried about how do we keep people awake, and I shared with a few staff, I was thinking of maybe taking forgiveness out of the awakening and putting it in movement to mastery. I got like 40 calls in one day saying, "Don't you dare take that was the most profound process of the whole," that. And basically, what you'll find out is that your level of self-expression has everything to do with your level of forgiveness, your ability to forgive yourself and other people in your life. So that process is called forgiveness as freedom because it can be a phenomenally freeing process. Okay. Next day is the last full day of the awakening. That's where I do the greatest key to manifest your dreams, which is about higher purpose. Okay? Like I said, if you don't have a higher purpose, you're eddying out on the river. The more you have a higher purpose be the context for your life, the more you move to the center of the river where the water is the clearest and the deepest and the fastest. Okay? And that takes a good part of a day. I think 4 or 5 hours, because the art and science of teaching you how to do your daily activities inside of a personal dream, like I want to be the world's greatest ballet or rock star or whatever, inside of a higher context or the highest context, there's an art and a science to it. So I have to walk you through how do you do that? Because most people have all kinds of considerations about, well, I got to sell everything and move to Africa. No, you do exactly what you're doing now. You just do it with a different context, from a different place. You make what you wake up for, what you go to bed for, what you have conversations for about your highest context. And I'll give you just one or two stories. One time, um, when my son Eli was a teenager, I think he was about 15 or so, he got jumped by a gang and beat up. And so I'm like shaking. I'm so, upset. And, I had to teach empowerment dialogue that night. So I called a bunch of people who were facilitators in case they could at least relieve me that night. And nobody could. So I called Eli's friends, said, I really need you to be with him because I've got to do this thing tonight. So they all came over. He was okay. But I did the best evening probably of my whole career that night because I put all that emotional energy into my presentation. Another time, my car got totaled. I was pulling off of I-15 to I-80. Everybody was stopped, and this guy hit me full speed. Bam! And I had to swerve to miss the car in front of me, and my car went up 3 cars. Right? So I'm on my way to the awakening. It's the first night of the awakening, right? Oh no, first full day. And my car is totaled, right? So while the police are talking to me, I have to deal with this, but I'm on the phone and I'm talking to people who can facilitate what to do until I get there. And I'm not concerned about my car being totaled. I'll deal with that. I'm concerned about creating heaven on earth because that's what I wake up for. That's what I go to bed for. If I'm telling jokes with my brothers, that's what the jokes are about. A higher context. So it takes me a good part of the day to teach you all the ins and outs of how to do that. Okay? Right now, without a higher context, you're a victim of your circumstances. Is it a good day? Oh, I got a raise. It's a good day. Oh, I got fired. It's a bad day. As long as that's your reality, you're a victim of your circumstances. Once you have a higher context, it doesn't matter what happens in the circumstances. You can stay happy and satisfied and fulfilled. It doesn't matter. Oh, I'm broke. I've got really challenges with my bills. Great. And I'm satisfied. Okay. So that's the last full day of the awakening. And I basically tell people we're going to play a game on this day because they've been through 10 days of really amazing stuff. And I said we're going to pretend that today is the last day of your life. And I want you to make it as real as you possibly can. Because that night, we're going to wake you up in the middle of the night. We're going to take you through a farewell process where you're going to imagine that you're going to die. So they have a lot of ahas and discoveries about what would it be like if today was the last day of my life. And they discover a lot of cool stuff. And then we wake them up in the middle of the night. Tell them, don't get dressed, just get your pajamas on, just put some water on your face, come down. And we found out that the right amount of tired is essential to get the most out of it. So it's not when they first go to bed, it's not in the morning, it's somewhere in the middle of the night, okay? Just the right time. So they're the right amount of tired, okay? And then they go through this visualization where they basically live the last year of their life. Like they found out they got a disease, they got a year left to live, they go to a year, 6 months, 3 months, and then in the last week, they're in a room and they're going to say goodbye to the 7 most important people in their life. And then after the 7, there's a long table where they can say goodbye to everybody else they didn't get a chance to say goodbye to. Okay? But you're going to go through a very detailed conversation. You're going to remember, first of all, you're going to clear up anything that you've held between you two, like upsets or resentments or, whatever. Then you're going to remember the best moments you've shared together. You're going to go through a series of stuff that we're going to take you through. And when you come out of it, you look like you've just seen God. You look like saints. And the way I have people share is I tell them, I want to hear what you got out of this process. And the way I want to hear it is I want you to make a declaration, a promise, a commitment on how you intend to live from this moment on. And I love the way people share. My favorite is like when a father is in the workshop and they have like a couple of children in the workshop, right? And dad stands up, puts his arms up, and says to his kids, I have not told you how much I love you anywhere near enough. And I promise you from this day forward that every time I see you or I talk to you, I'm going to remind you just how much I love you. Right? People make amazing declarations because they realize time is too precious to waste. So then, that's the 6th level of awe. The last level of awe is the graduation. In your pre-course packet, once you put down a deposit, we're going to send you a pre-course packet. In the packet is going to be 3 copies of a letter that you can make copies of because you're going to send them to your friends and family so they can be to the graduation, okay, which we call the homecoming. So, your guest will be in a room, and you'll be in a separate room. And I come and I warm up the guests, and I let them know they don't have to participate. It's not going to be selling them anything. We're just going to do our thank yous and our I love yous. That's our version of graduation. So we're going to acknowledge each other, right? Then the participants come in, and this is fascinating. Like you can see, for example, how much Dave's face has shifted since he first got here. But he can't see it. He can look at you and go, wow, she's really changed, but you can't see it, okay? Same thing with the awakening, only times 10. When you walk in the room for the homecoming, some of your loved ones will literally burst into tears because they can see how much you have grown, how much you have risen, okay? Then we sit you down, and we just start acknowledging each other. I just want to acknowledge Amanda, and Amanda wants to acknowledge Samantha. It's like that. It goes around the circle. Well, because you guys don't really see, because you're kind of like fish in water. You don't really see how you are being. And within, again, another half an hour, there's not a dry eye in the house. Within another 45 minutes, the guests now are raising their hand. They want to participate. Right? Within another half an hour, this is my favorite. Every single time there's a homecoming, somebody who you can tell is like a military man who never talks, never cries, would never say, I love you, right? Okay. Stands up and says something like, well, I don't know what you people have been doing here, but I guess I never really told my daughter how much I love her, and honey, I just want you. And pretty soon, there are so many hands up, I can't call on everybody. Everybody wants a chance to participate. You'll see children who are 9 years old saying the most beautiful things to their mom and dad. You know, ex-husbands and wives asking for forgiveness. It's like everybody died and went to heaven. That's the seventh level of all. Okay? Okay. So here's what I want you to do. Get a partner, share with your partner. If by some miracle I was able to make it to the awakening and the genie could give me anything I want out of that experience, what would I want more than anything else in the world? So share that with your partner. Go back and forth. Don't let one person do all the talking. Okay? Get a partner and share with your partner back and forth. If I could have anything out of the awakening, what would I want?
I already went. So, but it was pretty powerful. So it's pretty.